America, we haven't. We still have problems with ASL, and we still have big problems, so.
Also, when you take Spanish classes, one of the challenges we have there is we have interpreters who don't know Spanish. And we're trying to interpret teacher who's talking Spanish. True. We're talking, hola, come on the side. There's some one interpreter knows Spanish, but he can't sign read it. They'll be cheating. You just translate everything. Oh, it's translated. Whatever you understand. So it's a complicated trying to understand what the professor is saying, as well as the words what that mean, how they translate in my head, and then translate what's that word. Is that what I'm thinking it is? I mean, no. That's a different thing. It's a lot of words. It's like a huge, what's the word? You know, what is it's easy about my mind is everything like a big factor, the one engine that working full-time hours trying to figure out, get all the words, match it. Okay, that matches. The sentence makes sense, but it doesn't. You get a new language, is like different. The first day or first week, what they're saying is English. They were starting to learn vocabularies, and I guess some understand it, but it takes longer for me to learn that language rather than, or no.
So I've got a question for all of you, and some of you know sign language and some of you don't, but who was the first person that you met that used sign language and used oral language at the same time, maybe with sign as well? I understood both oral language and sign language, right? But did you typically look at people's mouths or the signs when they started signing? Well, there's signs, of course, first, but the mouth movements help me to understand the signs. Well, if I watch people's mouth, for me, that's a limitation of expression. And, if I'm watching their mouths while they're signing, to me, I think that, limits the conversation as well. So, if I'm just signing an ASL, I can produce a full thought. But if I'm watching somebody's mouth, I have to kind of teeter between the two languages. And sometimes I miss things, or I get confused easily, or I become bored with conversation because English and C and variations of sign language can become boring sometimes. It's not as beautiful as ASL, nor as fascinating as my language. So, do you have a question?
I find it absolutely incredible when I watch you guys sign. It seems like for every symbol there's like 15 words attached to it. Are you just going very fast, or do some of those symbols have multiple meanings?
Well, ASL has some idioms, is what we call it. One sign can mean like a whole concept. For example, train gone is the two signs, train gone, sorry. That really means you missed the boat. You missed what I said. And, in reality, this is a sign, true biz is how you would say it. But how would you describe that? Can I get some help here with true biz? That one, it means, for real, or, like for real. That's what I would use for that. That really happened, How would you describe it? True biz, it has many connotations, I think. There's a list. But, like in English, sign language also has a sign for each word definition, but there's one sign that may have multiple different, or one word that may have multiple different signs included in it, like run or running, or running a business. There's different ways that you would sign run conceptually. I try to teach that to my students, like, tall, or thin. There's many different ways to say it, conceptually, but you have to match the concept. English has many words and many definitions, and you have to know the context and the meaning related to it. So I think, both languages are cool. English is awesome, and ASL is awesome as well, so I go with both. Well, for example, some hearing people tend to, say, it's raining cats and dogs. That popular statement? That's tough in ASL because there's no equivalent. It takes facial expressions to show that. Oh, it's pouring, raining cats and dogs. And with the facial expressions, you can say it's raining really hard that way. Where if you said it's raining cats and dogs, it really wouldn't make as much sense as if you said use the facial expressions. There's another sign, that's pouring. It's pouring outside. So, you can exaggerate your facial expressions and your body language, and, most can be done on the hands.
The same in English. In English you have two, and two, which is I'm going to the door, me too, or number two. It's the same thing with ASL.
It just sounds like when you sign, there's like 15 words that come out of her mouth for one sign. That's incredible.
Well, really, it's more than that. We sign, and in the process, sometimes we're signing really fast. You may not recognize it, but there is more than one sign, more than one word being produced. There is an order there, but there's not a sign for each word. You're correct in that respect. It's not the same as other languages. My theory is that ASL, it's really LSL. Lazy sign language. Sign things short, after a while. And that's why we love ASL. It's not a lot of work involved. Are there any other questions? One from the back? Go ahead. I'm deaf. My brother was asking, you have hearing friends or deaf friends?
For me, I have more hearing friends because my family is hearing. I'm the only deaf person in my family. I grew up mainstream, so I was around hearing people all my life. So for me, I have more hearing friends.
I want to add to that, taking signs that,
I enjoy hanging out with either or for different reasons. I mean, I have fun with my deaf friends because I get to express myself in a different way or whatever. And with my hearing friends, I don't know, it's just different. You can't compare them really.
Sometimes when you hang out with human friends, you can just struggle because sometimes they say, what? Never mind. That's not fair. I didn't understand that word, and you would keep me. Hold on. If they can do it, why can't I? Why can't I understand? And sometimes it gets a little frustrating, What do you say?
Not much of a question as a comment. Taylor is my daughter, and I've been in the Army for over 20 years. So with that, she's not been around me as much as her mother. In that, you guys have asked a lot of questions of how you were being raised, and when did you learn you were deaf, or your parents, in this case, learned or tell you all these different things. With that, I'm going through my head reliving all of these challenges that I know she was going to go through. And I used to pick on her, I guess you could say, in such a way that I was telling her, as your question was, have you been ridiculed? Have you been made fun of? And I told her straight up, you're going to be made fun of because you're different. And so throughout her life growing up, we have tried to position her so her feelings wouldn't get hurt as much. Not that she should be picked on. No one should, for whatever reasons. But with that, I want to say to all of you, especially the ones who can hear, I mean, to me, the word deaf was you can't hear. You cannot hear anything at all. And so I sometimes use the word deaf with her or when I'm speaking about her, but because of her deafness, her hard of hearing, I look at you guys who can hear, and I know you've already made the jokes of, you know, you can turn your hearing aids off. I said she's part of the X-Men, you know, so those of you who can hear some, you're part of the X-Men because you don't have a disability, and I always tell her this, you have an ability to turn off sound. I said, I have to listen to you constantly, but you get to turn me off. I said, I'd like to have that too. I'm an ADHD kind of guy. You know, every little thing has got me. But yes, she slept like a baby because the hearing did not wake her up. That's why she's so tall and, you know, taller than I am now. But it amazes me how I've seen her grow up. We did push her for verbal. We used sign language with her when she was little. You know, we want to eat, we want more, you know, shower, we want water. You know, I know a little and don't claim to know a lot. And I joke with her because we've done Spanish and speaking Spanish. 1 year in high school, they put her in French. The next year, they put her in German. So we were talking about languages. I was going to jokingly ask, how do you sign the word Spanglish?
Just spell it.
Exactly. So coming from the Army, we are very diverse. And that's one thing, the gentleman who's the police officer in the academy, where Taylor wanted to go, we thought there was some limitations, and there are limitations for certain things. In the Army, I can't get her qualified. She cannot come in. But for the law enforcement piece, she wants this gory, going to crime scenes, doing all these type of lab type stuff. So the forensics now lets me see that, hey, maybe that is a route for her because I've seen someone else get to do those type of things. We're always looking for technologies of how do I make something more light-driven, some type of visual recognition, and not so much auditory for hearing. So she can still do the same thing everybody else can. Bottom line, I'm very proud of what all of you have accomplished. We think, okay, we can hear. Well, it's not that easy either. And to see other folks who have things in their life that can hold them back, that is something I'm very proud of my daughter, but I'm also very proud of you guys.
Thank you. And I'd like to add to that, recently you described what's called hearing privilege. For example, you know, you can't stop hearing and you can't get into the army, you know. Well, in Israel, they have deaf people in their army. You know, how would you explain that? That's a different point of view. In Israel, everybody must go to the army. It doesn't matter whether you're deaf or hearing or whatever. They have to serve their country somehow. So looking at that, it makes me see that they can succeed. So why can't we? That's just the view of limitations, that we can't because we're deaf. And that's just because you guys won't accommodate it. You know, they feel like, oh, well, maybe they can't hear noise. What's going to happen? Oh, life's going to be awful. It's really not like that. You know, anybody can succeed. It doesn't matter whether they're deaf or hearing. It doesn't matter. The problem is the majority have that, that criticism. You know, like an owner of a construction company once told me, you know, people, you know, deaf people can never work in construction. I said, really? Well, my father used to work in construction. You know, he was hearing, and he got ran over, and he's hearing. So how would you explain that? So, you know, maybe we can't hear, but my father being hearing, you know, I mean, what about all the accidents that happen that, you know, include drivers that are hearing? You know, most of the accidents that happen on the road are hearing people. So, you know, negative things can happen to people whether you're hearing or deaf. And regarding children, you know, when you have deaf children thinking that they have a problem and they can't and they're limited in some way by their deafness, it's just not fair. You know, deaf people have to do more, this is true, if they want to succeed, they have to do more in a hearing world compared to a hearing person. You know, if they work harder, they have to study harder, they have to prove at a job, in a job interview, that they're capable, you know. With hearing people, they don't really have to work as hard to prove, you know, they can use their words to speak and represent themselves, you know. Whereas deaf people have to support their point of view and prove that they can do the same work as a hearing person. So, you know, that's kind of a view that should not continue. It should never have happened. And we shouldn't have to face that. I'd like to add something to an personal experience. In 7th grade, before, you know, I was a judo athlete. In 7th grade, they asked me in the future, you know, what do you want to do with your life? You know, I said, I want to go to the Olympics. They said, oh, you can't. I said, well, why not? Oh, you're deaf. And I was like, well, you know, I didn't really accept it at that time, you know. And 2002, I made it to the Olympics. Why? You know, because people told me that deaf people couldn't hear, so they couldn't be in the Olympics. I turned a can't into a can for me. And that's the point. Deaf people are thought of, oh, they can't. I hear people say, oh, it's a limitation. We're thought less of, but it's not true. All deaf people can. They are capable and able to do anything that's possible in this country and this world. Yes, sorry.
You mentioned to the hearing people, if you do run into that person, give them a chance. They can prove that they are just as good or better than your peers or your coworkers. Like myself, for example, I just started working at a company in September. They hired me on, okay, we'll let you, you know, give it a try. I was like, okay, fine, we'll let you, you know, we're gonna train you for 2 weeks. I said, okay, fine. 2 days later, you go, you're doing stuff that takes other people a month to figure out. You're amazing. So 2 days later, they're already using my work for, you know, their project or creating a project. And my project that I work on are, you know, several $100,000 to $5 million project. They, you know, they trust me to make the right decisions for these projects. So.
Okay, last question. Bill, go ahead. I'm curious, as being deaf, you live life as a deaf person. Would you understand visual? Life is more visual for deaf people, so. Oh, sorry. So I imagine that
Just go
if
PG.
you are using LSD, you would be